So, hi everybody, and thanks very much for joining us for another Discover Wildlife evening. Most of you, if not all of you by now, will know me. I'm Emma, and I'm part of the wildlife team here, the Wildlife Worldwide team, even. So, I'm in the sales team, and I also lead some of our photography trips. And we also have Bret Charman, who is also part of the team and also leads some of our photography trips. We are here tonight to talk about Costa Rica, a place that I absolutely love, and I've been twice, and I'm currently trying to organise to go back again later this year. So I could talk about it for hours, but we'll try not to. So we're going to discuss a little bit about basically the biodiversity of this incredible country. So Brett's going to cover a bit of the general country information. I'm going to go through a little bit of our where we cover trips to and just some of the best areas to see certain things. And then I'm going to hand back over to Brett to talk through our festival next year, which is one of the main kind of things we're going to focus on. So it might be a little bit bitty. Bear with us for any technological issues on the way through, but we're going to start running through it. So I will, without further ado, hand over to Brett, who's going to talk you through the country.
Perfect. Thanks, Emma. So we have a slight technical issue, and so I'm going to have to do some funky hand signals to tell Emma to change slides for me. But apart from that, we're all good. Just to keep you in the loop. So yeah, to start with, I just thought we'd give you a nice little introduction to Costa Rica. As I'm sure many of you know, it's famed for its wildlife, fantastic forests, and just generally being a pretty beautiful country and a friendly one at that too. So we'll hopefully be able to give you a little bit of inspiration, but also an insight into the country, some of our tours, as Em said, and specifically our Festival of Wildlife. But to start with, we wanted to give you an overview. And so I just kind of thought it was handy to show you on a map a little bit about Costa Rica. So it's flanked by two countries. It's got two borders, one with Nicaragua to the north and Panama on the sort of, well, eastern border technically, but in the south of the country. And it's a pretty varied country, actually. It's obviously primarily sort of tropical forests. But on the East Coast is quite different to the West Coast, for example, the Caribbean coast to the Pacific. And the interesting thing is the seasons vary depending on coast. So it's not like you go to Costa Rica and the whole country is in the same weather pattern. One side might be completely different to the other, to give you an idea. And this just gives you an idea of where the capital is, San Jose, pretty much in the center of the country, up in sort of the high altitude sort of center of the landmass. And then you've got a couple of national parks which are particularly famous, like Tortuguero in the northeast and the Caribbean coast is particularly famous. Corcovado as well is particularly famous, and we'll get on to that a little bit later on. And then another area that's particularly well known is the around Arenal, which is a famous volcano, and sort of the forests around that area. It's quite a varied country, as I said, and very beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is sort of give you an overview to just some of the statistics. It's a pretty small country. It's only 51,000 square kilometers. But what is quite amazing is that there are an incredible 29 national parks. You know, compared to the UK, that's pretty remarkable for such a small country. What makes it even more impressive is the fact it's home to between 5 and 6% of the entire planet's biodiversity. So a country that small is, you know, supporting a huge array of species from tiny invertebrates to some pretty large mammals and some very impressive birds as well, and reptiles too, I should say. And in the oceans, the biggest mammals on Earth can often be seen, you know, sort of the cetaceans and things like that. So it really is quite impressive. There's four sort of distinct biomes. There's actually more probably than that, but these are the main ones, which include the tropical rainforest, which we're so familiar with, a tropical dry forest, which surprises a lot of people in Costa Rica, and then the beautiful montane cloud forests and these high altitude grasslands as well. And this is a very damp climate, as you can imagine, being cloud forest. And then coastal mangroves, which are actually, unfortunately, across most of Central America, massively decreasing. But then play an incredibly important role for a whole host of species, but also flood prevention from tidal surges and things like that. Particularly in hurricane season, these areas are really, really important. So this kind of just gives you an idea. I've got a few slides here, four different slides of the landscape. So this is sort of the cloud forest habitat that is sort of blanketing the high altitude mountains And these forests are filled with life, but a lot of the time they are shrouded in mist and cloud. But they are beautiful and great places to see resplendent quetzals. And when you come a little bit lower down from these landscapes, you get these incredible sort of lush tropical forests, these rainforests, so to speak. And that's where you get these beautiful waterfalls as they're sort of cascading down from the higher elevations to the lower elevations. And Costa Rica has a lot of spectacular waterfalls. So if that's your thing, you probably won't be disappointed if you're doing a tour that encompasses quite a few of the areas. Particularly up near Arenal, for example, there are some pretty spectacular waterfalls, so worth looking at. And speaking of Arenal, here's the mountain, and it's worth saying that it's very spectacular when you can see it. And the when is a key thing because a lot of people go to Arenal, including Chris Breen, our esteemed founder, who always talks about the fact he never saw it. But I've seen it. I can tell you it does exist. And it is quite a remarkable mountain sticking out. It is, of course, a volcano. So please don't be worried about that. We'll get onto that in a little bit more detail in a second. But after that, another sort of habitat is this sort of coastal forest and mangrove habitat as well. It sort of all merges into one, but they are distinct. It's lowland rainforest that sort of then merges into mangrove forest, and you get these beautiful sort of coastal lagoons up in Tortuguero and these amazing long beaches as well. A fabulous place to discover wildlife. And what's so nice about this part of the world is you can enjoy explorations by boat and on foot as well. And you get a real mix of species. So we'll move on now to talk about sort of the biodiversity really of Costa Rica itself. And Costa Rica, as I said, has a huge amount of biodiversity. So there's over 300,000 species of invertebrate alone. So that's your insects, things like that. It's truly remarkable. And yeah, exactly. Em's clapping and sort of whooping at this point because that's her absolute bread and butter. That's what she loves more than anything. And it really is unbelievable. Anytime you spend in the forest, I mean, even if you're in the gardens of people's sort of properties, the invertebrate life is exceptional. So if that's your thing, then Costa Rica is definitely the place. But it's a place for everybody. 11,000 species of plant. So for the botanists among you, you can see some truly remarkable plant species, many of which are endemic as well, particularly in the montane forests and things like that. A staggering 900 species of birds. When you consider how small Costa Rica is, that is absolutely remarkable. So Colombia, for example, which is significantly larger landmass, is home to nearly 2,000 species. So it's at the halfway point of that, and probably I would say a tenth of the size of Colombia. So it gives you an idea of the scale of the bird life. But the mammal life alone is also impressive. 250 species of mammal. And what's great about Costa Rica is it's sort of this mixing of the Northern American continent with the South American continent. So you've got this real mishmash of different species that you'd expect from either or the other, but actually they're all kind of found here together. Particularly the mammals and the birds. That's particularly true. And the reptiles as well. It has a bit of that mix of both, which is quite fascinating. But there are some real corkers of reptiles, some real spectacular species. I know Em sort of likes these things too, but there are some really good ones, including some of the sort of the snakes and the lizards and stuff that live there. So basilisks and things, which again we'll get onto in a bit. But for me, one of my favorite things are the amphibians. 194 species of amphibian. The most famous is probably the red-eyed tree frog. Again, I'm sure we're going to see a few pictures of that along the way. But it is an amazing place for that. And for those of you who are interested in the underwater life, just in the freshwater river systems and lakes, there are 250 species. So it really is quite remarkable. And at the bottom there, I've just listed a few of the sort of standout species, I suppose. Just a few of them. I mean, there's many. But scarlet macaw, resplendent quetzal, the three-toed sloth, red-eyed tree frog, and the jaguar. But I mean, there are tons. So it was very hard to put five. I just put five that immediately came to mind for you. So I've got a few pictures now just of some familiar species. And again, Em's going to cover a bit more about some of these, and I will too at the end when I'm talking about the festival. But for me, one of the most endearing animals of Central America, and actually Southern America probably, but in Costa Rica, they're particularly cool, I think. They're just quite habituated, pretty relaxed. And this is it. This is the coati. Sorry, I should have said. But actually, if you ever want a bit of a giggle, look at a video of a coati walking backwards, and it looks like a dinosaur. It's really cool. So yeah, just for your information. But yeah, there's loads of cool life in the forest here. So particularly in the trees, always keep your eyes open. There are loads of sloths. So you get both three-toed and two-toed in Costa Rica. This is a three-toed. They are really awesome, and they do go green, and they do get moths. This one actually is scratching, and I'm not even joking. As I was taking the picture and watching it, you could see the moths flying out of there. It was quite amazing. But the other things in the trees, obviously, the mammal life particularly, are things like the monkeys, the primates. So this is a spider monkey, just amazing watching them move through the trees with those prehensile tails. And one of the cool things, obviously, about a lot of the New World monkeys is they have these prehensile tails, whereas the Old World monkeys don't. So it's a real point of differentiation, and really fun to watch them just see this fifth limb. It's quite incredible. But as I said, the cold-blooded life, the amphibians and the reptiles are awesome. So we've got probably the most iconic, I would say, actually, of all the animals now in Costa Rica. It's just become super famous as the red-eyed tree frog with these beautiful blue flashes on it. Quite easily seen, but just magical and quite big as well for a tree frog. And then the next thing we have coming up is a basilisk, which is one of these remarkable lizards that I spoke about, otherwise known as the Jesus Christ lizard. They have a habit of running across water, which is a pretty cool thing, but just amazing reptiles, really cool. This was actually just photographed in the garden of the house I stayed in. But the bird life is particularly important and a big draw. This is a kill-billed toucan, probably one of the most spectacular toucans in the world. But we also have things like great curassow, which is the next one. And this bird is a monster. It's kind of like a rainforest turkey, really. It's the best way to put it. But they are a really impressive bird. It's a large bird. And there's, of course, things like scarlet macaws, which are a real draw, particularly actually in the Ossa Peninsula, where we'll get onto later on for the festival, and a huge number of hummingbirds in the cloud forests, in particular those higher altitude elevations, but they are in the lowlands too. So there really is an amazing mix of species on offer. Um, I kind of wanted to end, well, not end, but sort of this section is just talk a little bit more about what else goes on in Costa Rica. And Costa Rica is known as part of the Ring of Fire that goes all the way around the Pacific. As such, it has over 200 volcanoes. Most of them are not active, you'll be pleased to hear, but there are two which are. And it is a particularly sort of renowned area for volcanologists and things like that. So it's a pretty amazing country from its geology point of view, as well as for the sort of the natural history side. But one of its biggest exports are things like coffee and chocolates, well, chocolate cocoa, I should say. And it is exceptional. I mean, I had some amazing chocolate when I was in Costa Rica. I'm not a coffee drinker. I know that's sacrilege, but I know that people do rave about Costa Rican coffee. For those of you that like the marine life, that's below the waves, I should say, rather than the things that you can actually see from above the water. Then the diving is also pretty exceptional. The Pacific coast more so than the Atlantic. The Atlantic is a little bit more sort of mangrove sort of forest and things like going into the ocean. There are beaches, but it's quite good for surfing as well. But the scuba diving on the west coast, and particularly the Cocos Island, which is off the coast, is pretty exceptional actually. And as such, with all of these things, it has become one of the world's leading countries in ecotourism. And I'm sure many of you have heard the fact that Costa Rica has actually reversed deforestation, which is pretty exceptional. And currently, 25% of the country is set aside for conservation purposes, which I think is probably more than anywhere else on Earth. I'd need to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. And one of the great things about Costa Rica is this thing that they say, and it's a way of life, it's pura vida. And you'll see it everywhere in Costa Rica, and I mean everywhere. People say it, it's printed everywhere, it's on t-shirts, it's on buildings, airport, you name it. Pura vida is genuinely a way of life. And it's just about enjoying life and making sure you're fit and healthy and good food and company and, all of those things. And of course, that includes the natural world. So it kind of encompasses a bit of everything. And I think it's a really nice way to encapsulate Costa Rica, is that sort of phrase that they use, and what it's become synonymous for. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pass over to Em, and she's going to talk through some of our trips, and share some of her amazing photographs of some of the cool critters and birds and macro life and mammals and you name it, Costa Rica's got it, as I've said. And so she's going to give you a little bit of an insight into a few trips, um, what you can see and discover. And then I'll come back on in a little bit and talk about our Festival of Wildlife that we're running down to Corcovado. So over to you, Em, and I'll join you again in a bit.
Fab. Thanks, everybody. Well, thanks, Brett, and thanks, everybody, for bearing with us with the technology. So, yeah, as Brett said, I'm going to talk you through a couple of the trips that we do. So we have two main group trips, Costa Rica's Wildlife Wonders, um, which this just gives you a bit of an overview of where that goes. That's probably our most generalist Costa Rica trip. We also then have the cloud forest and jungles, which I'll get onto later. And then, as we keep talking about, which probably should have highlighted a bit more, but the Festival of Wildlife, which you'll probably have heard us talking about a lot over the last couple of years, but well, year or so, we launched it last year, which is going to Costa Rica, just down to the Osa Peninsula there in the south west next July. But yeah, we will talk more about that later. But I just thought it might be worth giving you, because I think it's one of those things that, Costa Rica's a much talked about location. And I think people, they associate it with the hummingbirds and the toucans, but there's so much more to see. And as Brett said, basically any excuse for me to show you some bugs, I'm going to do it. So bear with me, but I'm just going to take you on a bit of a journey. So for all of the trips, whether it's our group trips or whether it's the tailor-made, which actually we do an awful lot of, and there's so many different locations to go to. It often depends on what you want to see and if there's anything in particular or anywhere that you want to go. So we can move it around various destinations, but this just shows you the areas that we go to on the Wildlife Wonders. This is kind of the highlights, basically. Takes you to some of the best bits. So you start off in San Jose. What is it like as a town? Couldn't possibly tell you. I have never been. I wouldn't choose to go. You get into the airport and you get out of town to a hotel nearby, which is this. And I'll admit, this is my photo and it's a dreadful one. And I'm sorry, but I suddenly on the last day thought, oh God, I must take a picture of the hotel. But this is the Hotel Bougainvillea and it is a stunner. So my mum and I have been, I've been there once and I went with my mum and she'd been there before. We went there 3 days early because this garden is like a mecca for bugs and birds. So it's just incredible. And if anybody's looking for kind of a day to chill out and do some extra photography, I can highly recommend it. But it's a lovely hotel. It's not, it's not a luxury place. It's very comfortable, about half an hour, 40 minutes from the airport. But the garden is huge and they've just kind of created all these beautiful places which make it fantastic for wildlife. So you can spend, I mean, we didn't want to leave after 3 days, so you can probably spend more than that, but let's not be silly. Fantastic place for hummingbirds. So might be your first chance of seeing things like this. So this is the violet saberwing. They flutter around, the top of the bushes there. So you can just kind of sit yourself on a bench and watch. But a lot of the hotels have feeders outside. So these guys are pretty much nailed on. You will see them around. There's also some really nice birding to be done in the garden. So mottled owls can be seen nesting here. And often, it's normally like the garden, the workers in the garden who can show you where things like that are because they're just used to seeing them. But walking around, you will still see quite a lot. Broad-billed mots, they tend to quite like these areas of little sort of small forested areas. So you have chance of seeing those as well. But lots of bird life that is very possible there, even before you've left San Jose. Termites, so there's a lot of trees in the garden there, and termites tend to love the little, especially the dead tree stumps on the edge, and you'll see them like this coming out and building their little nests from the outside. But absolutely fascinating and something that you don't often get to see, I think, up close. So it can be really fun to just go and have a bit of a play with them. Paper wasps make their nests. Paper wasps make their nests underneath the leaves there. So you can, if you see them there, you can see them gradually making it, becoming this big, much larger nest. There's a few ponds, so you will get things like damselflies. It's a good place to start your frog photography. Not sure that the red-eyed green tree frogs are very common there, but you will get various types of frogs. But yeah, damselflies. And then my favorite thing, There are various species of jumping spider there, which are just stunners. So you can come across different sizes, different colors. God, you're going to get bored of jumping spiders. I'm really sorry. But the next one is my favorite. This is a little, I mean, this blew me away. This is a bit like a teddy bear. I mean, this is probably about maybe 1.5 centimeters. It was a chunky jumping spider. And this is the only place I've ever seen it in the gardens at the Bougainvillea, and it was an absolute stunner. We came across it 2 days running and then never found it again. But yeah, things like this you can just see if you're just looking in your hotel garden. I love it. Mantids, so not the more exciting ones necessarily here, but you'll get to see the small mantids. Various different types of weevil, which are always quite fun to photograph because they do love the edge of a leaf. So you can have some fun with them. And these are all during the day as well as at night. So even, you can spend your afternoon in the garden. A lot of hoppers, tree hoppers. This is a lace hopper. So in the bushes, you'll just find endless amounts of these sharpshooters. And you kind of think, oh, I've seen one, I've seen them all. But these are sharpshooters all in this garden. And you can just see the difference in the colorings. So you get to see completely different types. I couldn't tell you what they all are. I'm sorry. We could have a look at it. Um, and then this is my favorite, a Mexican tree hopper, which I think just looks like it's dressed in fancy dress. But yeah, all of these through the day, and some good nymphs as well. So, various different, levels. Um, and then some quite terrifying looking ants. Um, Again, around the leaves and tree stumps there. And then this leaf-footed bug, which I think they're fantastic. They just kind of look like they're wearing some sort of fancy boots. And then also at night, more so, you may see them in the day, but more so at night, you'll find these saddleback caterpillars. But please, if you do go there, never touch these. These are very, very poisonous. So that's just to give you a bit of an idea of the kind of things that you can see if you stop and take a look more closely. But let's move on. So initially, you've got to San Jose and you've only spent one night there. Sorry, I got carried away. And then you're going over to Tortuguero, so over to the East Coast again. So we saw this photo earlier. So the lodge that we use is right in the middle there of that bank. And you go on these boat trips either side along the mangrove forest. So it's a really fantastic way to just take it easy. You fly in there at the beginning and then you get there on the boat through the mangroves. And you've got this beautiful grounds again, where you'll find all sorts of things wandering around the grounds there, including these little guys that might be around. So there's a couple of different types of raccoons. These ones are the northern raccoons, and they're found throughout the country. But obviously, like most raccoons, they will try and find a lodge to live in because they know there's food. So you will tend to see them around. But the mangroves themselves even are just so beautiful, and especially when you go out first thing in the morning, the boats haven't started yet, so you get these beautiful reflections. And then inside all of these bushes, you get some incredible bird species. So you get the boat-billed herons, the Montezuma's or a pendula. So these you can find throughout the country, but they build these big shaggy nests in the trees. And they're just stunning, and you can hear their call from quite far away, and it's really beautiful. Then the smaller things like common toddy flycatchers, you'll see those hopping around a bit like our wrens. But to me, I think they just look a little bit like a cartoon character bird. Lots of different types of kingfishers. This is an Amazon kingfisher. Then you've got ringed kingfishers, slightly bigger. And I love it when they put out their crest. Then you get green kingfishers. So you'll see these all along the riverways. And obviously, as with most kingfishers, you'll see them fly past. But the nice thing about being able to take it really slowly on the river there is you can just kind of ease up to them and hopefully get some closer photos of them. Some basilisks, as Bret was saying, these you will find them near the rivers because they do like to run across the water. So these are fixtures that you'll see pretty much throughout the country. And again, along the rivers, because they know these lizards are there, you'll find the grey-lined hawks, which love to catch them and then take them up. So yeah, that's a sad one. Green iguanas, these guys are enormous. There are a couple of places that then the drivers know where to stop where you might see these along the way in transfers between places. But you'll often see these, especially by the river, watching from the trees. And then in the water, you'll get these lovely American caimans. So these are the smaller reptile of the area, and the one that I wouldn't mind so much running into. probably not so much these guys, the American crocodiles. So you can get these along the riverbanks. I would steer well clear of these ones. But the main reason we go up here, and the main reason a lot of people visit Tortuguera really is for the turtles. So it's what Tortuga actually means is turtle, and this is a really prime area for where they nest. And there's various times of years that the different turtles nest and hatch and go into the water. So July, August is a really, really good time for the green and the leatherbacks. Some are easier to see than others, but it tends to be if there is a really good nesting season and they're starting to hatch, you'll have dinner and then go out in the dark with the torches and you can see them going into the water. So it really does depend when you're there and what the activity is like. But it's just, a fantastic thing to see if you time it right. Again, frogs. So going out at night generally is just a must-do activity, really. So you can either go out on the boat from the lodge or go on a trail with the guide, walk around with your torch. You'll hopefully see some of these beautiful red-eyed tree frogs. And also then some of these poison dart frogs. So the green and black poison dart frog. Then you've got the blue jeans frog, which is one of my favorite names for an animal. But they are just absolutely stunning. And these are very small, probably 3 or 4 centimeters. And you tend to see them because, you'll kick the leaf litter and one will just pop out. So they tend to be really low to the floor, these guys. As Bret was saying, really fantastic for snakes. You can easily see vine snakes, sometimes just around sort of the lower shrubs and bushes, especially if you're walking through the rainforest. Leafcutter ants, they're often busy at night. You'll kind of walk around the paths and have to step over them because they'll have made a path across it and lining the forest floors, and then they'll go up the trees so you can see them carrying their bounties up the trees. So really fantastic, lots of things to see. You then come back from there. So you repeat your journey, basically come on a boat and then return by plane to San Jose, where you get into a minibus. Then you'll head down into the cloud forest. So you go into the scenic Savegre Valley, which is in the Talamanca mountain range. So it's a really beautiful forested area. And the real draw for this area is the resplendent quetzal, which is one of the most beautiful birds, and unquestionably one of the best places to see them. So this here is a female. As with most birds, we don't get the best rap. So the females are, they're very pretty, and they're lovely to see, but really everybody's going for these guys. So these males are absolute stunners. They've got these beautiful long tail feathers. They tend to eat these little avocados on the trees. So if the lodgers know of somebody with an avocado tree nearby, they'll tend to kind of, be in touch with them and they'll let them know if they're getting visits. But it's a fantastic way to go and see some. And you may, you often hear their call in the rainforest as well. So there's always a chance of seeing them. Sometimes it can be quite dark. Obviously, with any rainforest, it's a bit of a nightmare with that. But you can see them displaying their tails. And if you can see the male and the female, they'll often display with each other, which is amazing. So yeah, this is definitely, if quetzals are on your list, this is the place to go. Also fantastic for hummingbirds. So for example, like the fiery throated hummingbird, you can't see much of its throat and they do move around a fair bit. Sometimes they show it off a little bit more. That's when they're either flirting or getting cross, who knows which one it is. Then you've got the white-chested emeralds and sapphire-bellied hummingbirds. And I mean, these guys are all around. Like I said, a lot of the lodges have feeders around there, or they plant the small flowers that these guys really like. So you'll tend to get a real variation of these hummingbirds around all the different lodges. This volcano one is very small, about sort of 5 or 6 centimeters probably. And then the white-throated mountain gem, this is also a really, really tiny one. But they're really beautiful. And I think it's a nice way to see them in different locations, because you get them either, you don't really want them on the feeder, but having them next to the feeder gives you the opportunity to get some shots of them in the air flying. But also it's lovely to see them, I think, in their natural habitat, just sitting around the trees. So as well as the hummingbirds, you also get these beautiful emerald toucanets. These are one of my favorites. They're only found in certain kind of highland areas, but they are really stunning. And then another thing that you might see just hopping around the lodge, these are collared redstarts. So, like Bret said, there's 900 species of birds, so you could keep going for hours, so I won't, but some real stunners. And then you head down from San Gerardo, a bit of a drive, and then you'll get down to the Osa Peninsula. So this is really, as we were saying, the jewel in the crown for Costa Rica, but I'm going to let Bret talk more about it. So I'll just touch slightly on spider monkeys, which is already covered, but these just are really incredible to see them hanging in the trees with their tail and wandering through eating. You also get the white-faced capuchins. Don't be fooled by how cute they are. They will steal any food that you have, so just keep it away from them. One of my favorites are howler monkeys. This is generally what you'll probably hear first in the morning. So you'll awake to kind of an alarm of these lovely deep howler monkeys calling, which is just the most wonderful way to wake up. And if you're lucky, they'll bring their babies sort of lower in the trees. Again, some sloths. So this is a two-toed sloth, normally slightly bigger than the smaller three-toed sloths, but both absolutely amazing to watch them. I mean, it's like watching an animal in slow motion, just, trying to come down. And they only come down the tree to go to the bathroom, and then they'll just head straight back up again. So quite often, you'll see them just hanging around in the high leaves eating. But if you are lucky, we had one that I was lucky enough to see come down right next to us before it did its thing and went back up again. So that's kind of an overview of that. And then our second one is the cloud forest, jungles and volcanoes, which is probably slightly more leaning on the bird focus. So heading again, starting obviously in San Jose, and then heading up to Sarapiqui, over to Arenal, round the Pacific coast, and then ending up in Los Quetzales, which is the same kind of area as where we were with Savegre. So here we go. So starting at La Selva, which is in Sarapiqui, it's a lovely lodge, basically on the river there, which has, I think, over about 400 species of birds. So this is a chestnut mandible toucan, and again, similar to the one Bret showed, a keel build. But these are just always really wonderful to see. They're one of the ones that I think is top of a lot of people's list in Costa Rica. Again, these curassows, so they are, like Bret said, I mean, they are huge. He'll say turkey, I'll say it's a bit like a dinosaur. They just kind of stomp around and they're huge, but really incredible to see. And the males and the females, so this one's a female, so they are, I think, they are really just beautiful and really characterful. So if you can find them kind of wandering around the grounds, they are good fun to follow for a little bit. Then you get the really beautiful coloured smaller birds. So this one's a shining honey creeper. And these honey creepers are really pretty, and they love these they put little bananas and food out for them. So you'll get them flitting around these lovely small branches. And you'll often get rain in the rainforest. It's nice to play with the rain for some photos. And the birds come whether rain or shine. So, often people are worried about whether it's going to rain. It really doesn't matter. The wildlife's there, whatever. These Honduran white bats are one of my favorite things to see. They break the palm leaf, and then they sleep in the gap underneath it, so it sort of curves around them like a little duvet. And often the guides can tell obviously where they are, so they're fantastic if you can find those in the forest. Again, these cheeky coatis, they will also sort of try and come and steal things, but they have so much character, and you'll see them running around the lodge grounds and relaxing in the trees. And again, some more sloths, just because you can never get enough sloths, can you? And this one, she had her little baby. I don't know if you can really see it on this one. It's just cuddled up under her arm. And it looked quite precarious. She was eating from those leaves above her. And the baby was just kind of clinging on, but she's not holding the baby with anything. It was all down to the baby to keep hold. And then they decided to have a little cuddle, which was very nice. So you actually get to see the baby's face briefly before she carried on eating, but I think she was more worried about what we were doing. Some more snakes. So this one's a coral snake. Absolutely beautiful. Probably wouldn't go too close. But yeah, beautiful snakes if you can find them with the lovely green backgrounds. This was one of my favorite ever finds when I was on my way to a butterfly garden. This is a mossy stick insect, which if you're one of the guys there, they call them walking sticks. And if you're struggling to see what it is, the tail's basically coming down, the legs are attached to the top leaf, and the head is the blob top left. So it's kind of head top left and then going down to the tail, and it's got its legs holding onto the leaf. And these guys are just beautiful. So if you're lucky enough to find things like that, you can stay with them. At least you know they're not going to go anywhere very fast. So moving up to Arenal. So as Brett said, we love to rub Chris's nose in this. This is the volcano that he never saw. So this was erupting from the 60s until about 2010. So it's very recently stopped, but it is an absolutely stunning place to stay. So a lot of the lodges are just at the base of the volcano itself. And one of the activities you can do is a walk around the base where you can see all the lava rocks. So you get a lot of these hummingbirds there, lesser violet ears, rivolis, green crown brilliant. So you can see they're really like lush because it's quite a green kind of foresty area as well. And then the black-crested coquettes. These are really beautiful to watch, and we were lucky enough to see a couple together, which were kind of flirting with each other either side of the flowers. So it's lovely to watch the interactions. And these verbena bushes are around a lot of the lodges, and they plant them because the hummingbirds like them. So they're really good to just park yourself next to some. Some of the lodges have them at the end of the terrace of your room. If you park yourself next to them in the grounds, you never know what you're going to find. We found a mantis just eating a bee on the edge of it. So it's one of these things that once you start looking, I mean, I know I always say that about most bushes. Once you start looking in a bush, you never know what you're going to find. But I mean, this is that on speed. So you also worth going out at night here for sure. So the gardens around Arenal are fantastic. The If you're lucky enough to find something like this, I only saw this because the antennae were moving in the dark when I shone my torch. But this is a katydid nymph. If you've seen those katydids that look like the leaves. So this is it in a nymph form, eating its exoskeleton that it's just come out of, which is kind of one of their processes that they do. So you just never know what you're going to come across. What I went out for was these frogs. So there's a frog pond at the lodge there, and if you're lucky enough, you do get some really lovely red-eyed tree frogs there. Various different poses, different leaves, but they're really stunning to see. And also the possibility of a gold-eyed tree frog, which another type. So then you head over here to the Pacific coast. Slightly further up, you've got Tamarindo and more of the surfy places. We tend to stay further down away from the crowds. So then you'll get more of these water species like the spiny-tailed iguana. So whereas we had the green iguanas in the trees, and you may still get those, but the spiny-tailed iguanas you'll see kind of lounging on the rocks around the water on the coast. Blue mangrove crabs. So you're looking much more into the sand and the mud by the coast at this stage. Red-clawed crabs. That's not an easy one to say. Some long-nosed bats. I'd say these guys roost on the trees. So you can see the noses on the bottom and they're sort of sticking out, roosting on the tree during the day. So if you, again, some of the guides will know which trees they like to roost on. So if you're lucky, you can get some lovely views of those. Again, some different basilisks. So this is a baby basilisk, but some really lovely colours. Green spiny lizards. I mean, it does what it says on the tin, but they are absolutely stunning. They're quite speedy. Helmeted basilisks. So these guys tend to be more inside the trees. So when you're kind of walking through the forest, you might see these guys just hunkering down. And then more frogs. So emerald glass frogs. These guys tend to be more around at night. So you get a chance if you're out with your flash, and you can see those at night there, and in various different leaf poses. Some ghost glass frogs. These are, I think, one of the most beautiful that you can find there. So again, generally at night, these guys come out because they don't really like the light for their eyes. So you do have to be also quite careful if you're using flash with them, you be sparing. And I'm going to finish on this one. So this is because it's a bit self-indulgent, to be honest, and I apologize. But when I went to Costa Rica, this was the image. I'd sort of got one similar when I first went a few years before, and I was desperate to try and find something similar. And this was my last night about 10 minutes before we went back into the hotel. So I was just really excited. But, I think just the variety of species that you find, and how comfortable they are with people walking through the forest gives you the opportunity for this. So I had the flash under the leaf. The lizard was on top of the leaf, and okay, fair enough, he didn't stay for long, but you have the chance to just play around with things a little bit more than, you see something and it runs off. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I'm going to hand back to Brett now, who will take you through some ideas about what our festival is going to look like. And for those of you who don't know what a festival is, he's going to talk you through that. So over to you.
Thanks, Em. So yeah, to start with, I will talk about what a festival is. So it's really a celebration of wildlife. I mean, there's no simpler way to put it. It's a concept that Chris came up with. For those of you that don't know, Chris, he's our founder, Chris Breen, and basically he had this idea that you could bring together a group of experts, whether that be wildlife photographers, artists, naturalists, conservationists, all together under one roof, and then bring all of you guys out with us and then take over a lodge or a ship or, something like that. So we have complete control of an area, um, or a vessel, depends where we are. And we take over a lodge usually. And basically, what we do is we try and spend as much time as we can looking for wildlife with a group of like-minded people in some of the most magical wildlife destinations on Earth. We have been everywhere over the years, but for 2027, we have booked out a lodge in Corcovado National Park in Costa Rica. And that is including the Ossa Peninsula, Corcovado. So that's something to sort of keep in mind. We'll talk about Ossa, but also Corcovado. They're sort of one and the same, really. Um, but we start off by spending a night in San Jose, and there you will meet us. Um, and so the team includes Chris, our MD, myself, and Em, obviously, the absolutely bonkers but brilliant Helen Bryan, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Um, if you don't know her yet, you will know her quite well by the end of a week in Costa Rica with her. She's fantastic, brilliant guide, just the all-round nicest, most passionate human being alive. Then we have Nick Mackman, who is one of the most celebrated wildlife sculptors probably in the world. Won every award you can imagine, makes the sculptures, which are the actual awards for Wildlife Photographer of the Year. So she's pretty well respected and knows the stuff, but she's also actually a brilliant artist. If you want to draw wildlife, she's equally as talented, annoyingly, and knows a huge amount about anatomy and all that sort of fascinating stuff as well. We've got probably I'll say the effervescent Mike Dilger. If you want enthusiasm again, a bit like Helen, Mike is your man. But again, his knowledge is absolutely superb. A genuine naturalist, fantastic zoologist, and just all round nice guy, and is completely bonkers again, but in another brilliant way. And many of you, I'm sure, have travelled with Mike or at least seen him on the One Show. He's a great guy. Good fun to do your first aid course with, I can tell you that. And then finally, we have Becky Cliff, who you might not know her, some of you might. She actually founded a sloth conservation charity, and she is an expert in sloths. If you want to know about them, she is the person. And so we're working really closely with her. And one of the things that we really like about these festivals is at the end we try and run an auction and raise some money for a charity. And so our chosen charity for this is Becky's Sloth Conservation Charity. So we're really excited to have her along. As we said, we're going to the Ossa Peninsula and we're actually staying at Corcovado Wilderness Lodge, which is within Corcovado National Park. And as this quote says on screen, it's the most biologically intense place on Earth. And I think that's quite a fantastic quote, actually. It gives you an idea of sort of how much life there is, but also this area really is the crown jewel, I suppose, in Costa Rica's sort of array of national parks. It's got everything you can kind of ask for, from the little critters to the ocean giants, even, to bird photography, to just the most remarkable sort of array of species and an incredible amount of diversity. So we fly from San Jose to a place called Drake Bay, and there on our way there, we'll fly over landscapes such as this incredible mangrove landscape. This is sort of on the edge of Corcovado itself, but it just represents, again, this is different from where we're staying, but in such a small area, and sort of the levels of sort of landscapes within this small area is quite remarkable. And we'll then um, basically journey by boat to Corcovado Wilderness Lodge, which is a pretty exciting concept. You know, there's no roads here. So this is an adventure, but also Corcovado Wilderness Lodge, I can tell you, is probably one of the most comfortable lodges you'll ever get to experience. And we will get onto that in a little bit. Um, the Ossa Peninsula itself, I should say, to give you an idea, is about 80% national park. So it's a large protected area involved in that. So that's really important to know, just for you. For those that are interested about the boat journey, I know some people get a little bit nervous. It's about a 20-minute journey or so. So it's really not that bad. So do not worry about it. We're not going out into big open ocean or anything like that. We're sticking to the coastline. So just to clarify that. However, the rainforest here is magnificent. It's pretty much pristine. Some incredible sort of trees here, including these amazing old trees that have these buttress root systems. And these themselves play host to an incredible array of species themselves. But it is a magical place to be in a forest like this. It's got a real aura about it. Um, and obviously, we're there for the wildlife, and the bird life is pretty exceptional. This is probably the best place, arguably, in Costa Rica to see scarlet macaws. You know, what can you say about a macaw? They are just beautiful, beautiful birds. A bit noisy sometimes, clever. They can be cheeky when they're habituated to people, but scarlet macaws are a real draw here. We've already talked about the great curassows, and Em and I both sort of described them differently, but they really are characterful. You know, they can be quite curious as well. I don't know if Em's found that, but they will sort of walk up to you and they are quite dinosaur-like. She's right. They sort of like seem to stalk you, um, and will follow you around and things because they're just quite curious as to what might happen, you know, if any food shows up or anything like that. And they're pretty easily seen here, and they're a ground bird or in low bushes typically. So you will see them around lodges and in forest trails and things like that. But there really is sort of a plethora of different species here. It's not just the big birds as well. You get beautiful things like trogons. This is a black-throated trogon. These are sort of a true rainforest birds. I'm sure many of you have seen trogons in Africa and Asia as well. They're pretty widespread family of birds, but particularly beautiful. And a special species of woodpecker in this area is the red-crowned woodpecker. It's sort of you know, one of the sought after species on the Ossa Peninsula, but there are lots of common birds around as well. We get a lot of birds of prey. You'll see things like black hawks. Again, this is not a rarity, I should say, but they're beautiful, beautiful birds. And a lot of the time they can be quite relaxed and habituated as well. This is one of Chris's images from the pouring rain, but you know, it's just a magical place, and it doesn't matter, like Em said, if it's been raining, don't be put off by it. You know, this is what this place is all about. If it wasn't for the rain, it wouldn't be so diverse. So we've got to make the most of it when it does rain, and don't be disappointed. But a big draw for a lot of people coming to the Ossa Peninsula is for the primate life. So I know Em's already talked about sort of a few species, and I also sort of briefly talked about it earlier on. But the spider monkeys are among the most characterful. They're quite clever, cheeky, but typically they stay high up in trees. It's rare that you see them low, low down. So typically you'll see them at the top of a canopy. In bad weather like that, they'll huddle together to keep warm, but they're quite charismatic sort of things, and gangly is probably a good way to put it. They sort of look a bit like a Muppet character actually, but they are very cute and cuddly. And you will typically see them quite high up in the trees, but they will come lower down as well to feed. Um, but the monkey to pay attention to most in the Ossa Peninsula is one that Em's already spoken about, which is the white-faced capuchin, and they are sort of the bully boys of the monkey world in the sense that don't leave anything lying around because it will be taken. They will get up to mischief. They're sort of like the vervet monkeys. I remember Chris saying in his presentation of Costa Rica. So any of you have been on safari and you've had a cake snatched from you by a vervet monkey, these are the same kind of thing, really. You know, they're very cheeky, naughty, steal things at any opportunity. and they're just very clever, and that makes them great things to watch and to photograph and just to enjoy. I love the chaos that unfolds when monkeys start to steal things. It's always good fun, in my opinion. So go there with an open mind and enjoy it. And as Em said, the howler monkeys are just something else. These are mantled howlers here, and the noise is unbelievable. The first time you hear it, you do really think it's like, I don't know, like some weird jet engine in the distance, or like it's really hard to describe, or distant thunder going off, or gunfire, or like, but prolonged. It's this constant, deep noise that rumbles through the forest. It's a great way to wake up, and it is at dawn typically that you hear them loudest. And then the final monkey in this area are the squirrel monkeys, which are particularly cute, quite cheeky again, but they're sort of all over the place. And then big family groups as well. You can see quite a lot of them at once. Primarily, they eat fruits and leaves, but they again can be opportunistic, and you never quite know what you're going to see them doing. But they're really characterful, very sweet little monkey, quite dainty, and we should see them with relative ease. All those species are not unrealistic from some time in Corcovado on the Ossa Peninsula. Um, there are obviously a wealth of other mammals around. Raccoons here. You actually get two different species of raccoon. A lot of people probably don't even know there are two species of raccoon. So there's the northern one, which we get in America, which you're probably familiar with. The Americans are calling them trash pandas. I'm sure some of you have heard of that because of their mask. But there's also here crab-eating raccoons, very similar, only some very slight differences. This apparently is a crab-eating raccoon, but yeah, it's to do with facial markings, and also there are some no markings on their feet. But I mean, how you're going to notice that I think is quite tricky, particularly if they're moving around quickly and you don't get a good photograph. Can be a little bit tricky. But there's plenty of other mammal life as well. So the biggest mammal in Central America is found here, which is the tapir, Baird's tapir. Actually, I should be precise. And they can weigh up to 300 kilos, to give you an idea. So they're a pretty impressive animal. It's the only tapir you find in Costa Rica. There are others, obviously, in Latin America. But yeah, that's the only one we get here. But we have a good chance to see them. You can't guarantee anything, obviously, but they are here in good numbers, and apparently the population is increasing, so that's always good. Partly to do with Costa Rica's fantastic conservation sort of policies and protections in place. But the other things you can see are things like collared peccaries as well. A forest pig is probably the way to describe it. Pretty common and relatively easy to see, but it's rare you actually get good views of them from my experience. I've seen quite a lot of peccaries, but they're usually in pretty thick forest or in undergrowth or things like that. And so you can see them with pretty regularly, but getting a good view of them could be quite tricky. But for many people, the star mammal, I would say, is the coatis. And it is just because they're quite apparent. They're usually around lodges. They're quite habituated. They're clever again. They're quite similar to raccoons in many ways. And they are just really, really charismatic mammals. You'll see them in the trees, on the ground, and they are great posers and just really beautiful things. I mean, I loved watching coatis. They're just really fun. And you will be amazed actually at how sort of arboreal they can be. You know, when you see them on the ground, they're very comfortable on the ground, but when you see them in a tree, you realize why they've got that beautiful long tail, and suddenly they transform into an arboreal species. Um, it's worth saying that there are big cats in the area. Well, there are cats, full stop, in the area. There are also some smaller cats too. Typically, cats are very hard to see, particularly in rainforest environments. It's usually done with camera traps. So this is a puma. They are seen here from time to time. It's not unheard of, even in daylight, as are jaguars, but it's very unlikely you will see them. But we will be putting out camera traps each night on the trails around the lodge, in the park, to try and get, sightings of these. And one of my favorite things personally in the rainforest is going out in the morning and walking trails and seeing what's walked before you. You know, when you find a jaguar track and you know it's probably been there within the last hour, that is really exciting. I mean, the chance of you seeing it's almost nil, but it's just knowing that there's that presence of a large apex predator. It is really, really special. So we'll make sure that we take camera traps and things like that and do our best to record as much of what's in the area as possible. It's not always possible, but with luck, hopefully we should get some cat recordings. But it isn't just about those mammals and those birds, which is what most wildlife holidays are about. This rainforest environment is about the smaller stuff as well. There's so much variety. One of my favorite species is the eyelash pit viper, which Costa Rica's kind of become quite famous for, actually. They come in different color morphs, different, sort of sizes. Well, some are really, really tiny, and I mean teeny tiny, and some are a little bit bigger. Think the size of our adder, but you'll find them on branches, on low logs, and they can be in really varied places, and they are absolutely spectacular. Even if you're not a snake person, actually, it's amazing how many people see one and they're absolutely amazed by one. Probably because they don't sit much like a snake, they don't move that much. And but of course, there's things like the red-eyed tree frog as well, which is just that icon of Costa Rica. So we'll do our best to try and find them. They're relatively easily found, but obviously, again, you can't guarantee any of these things. And like M had those Honduran bats, these are tent making bats. Much the same thing. They fold leaves around to actually create a little waterproof tent, basically. Really cute characterful. You kind of have to look up underneath sort of palms and like banana trees and things like that, and you'll find these beautiful little bats, and they are actually really pretty. Like when you get a good view of them, they're quite stunning little things. And obviously, with Becky Cliff traveling with us, we have a sloth master. So if you want to know anything about these animals that have kind of become a symbol of Costa Rica, if you go when you get to San Jose Airport, or everything is sloth. When you leave, everything you can think of has a sloth on it. So if you want to get a sloth anything, this is the country to go to. But with Becky at the helm, hopefully we will have some great views of them. But also she'll just be able to tell us so much about them. And they are just the most amazing creatures. They do move very slowly, but they are also really happy, particularly the three-toed. They're always smiling. And they are pretty easy to see because they don't move very much. So when one is out in the open, you can get some pretty good views. So we will do our best to find all of those sort of amazing species. But one of the big benefits of staying in this area is the access to the ocean. It's not just about the rainforest, it's this land of contrasts. You've got the ocean that literally goes up right up to the rainforest. The rainforest comes right down to the beach or the cliff. So they're sort of almost entwined together. And this is Cano Island, which we can actually see from Corcovado Wilderness Lodge, which is great. And we'll spend time exploring the waters around, hopefully looking for cetaceans. So there's a chance to see, well, three species pretty reliably, which are humpback, Bryde's whale, pilot whales as well. But there's also a chance to see some dolphins, and it's sort of, we don't know what we're going to see, but there is a fantastic opportunity whilst we are here to do that, to head out on the water, and we'll try and use hydrophones as well. There are drones, so I've heard, that they use to also try and help identify, and also we'll take part in citizen science projects where and when we can. In terms of dolphins, I should say, there are bottlenose, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. There's also spotted dolphin, which look quite similar to the bottlenose, as well as rough-toothed dolphins as well, and spinner dolphins, which are much smaller, but do those incredible leaps out the water, and really put on a show. I mean, so do the bottlenose sometimes, and even the spotted dolphins too. So you never quite know what you're going to see, but we will do our best whilst we're there to maximize our time. And July is one of the best times to see cetaceans. So it's really important to say. So it's really good on land, but it's also really good on sea, on the water. So we will do our very best to try and maximize sightings. And the great thing is, by taking over a lodge, is we can literally dictate, what's going on. And every day we're going to have different activities. So by having all these experts on board, we're going to be able to utilize their skills to help you get the best out of it. So if you're interested in wildlife art and sculpture, Nick Mackman's your person. If you're interested in photography, Em and I are pretty useful. I can't say that we're the world's best, but we're not bad. Chris is a fantastic naturalist as well. HB, like I said, the most enthusiastic human being on earth. You've got Becky, who's the sloth master, and you've got Mike Dilger, another nutty naturalist who can go to town on anything. And don't get me started. If Mike finds something that he's fascinated by, I can assure you, you will know everything about it by the end of a 5-minute conversation. He really is fantastic. But the lodge itself is Corcovado Wilderness Lodge. It's a beautiful, beautiful property, like absolutely stunning. It has 30 different rooms, of which there are different sort of standards and different views. This one itself here is one of the ocean view village rooms. As you can see, magical setting, sort of up on above the bay, in the forest, just mesmerizing. This is the interior. What you could see was the outdoor bath on the veranda. You know, a pretty horrible place to spend some time when you want to rest and sort of have some downtime from all of us. You can retreat to something like this. There's also, though, the rainforest village, which provides a very different feel, but equally magical. What I love about places like this is that the wildlife comes to you. A lot of the time, you don't have to go out to enjoy incredible wildlife sightings. You know, sitting on your veranda can be magical. And even like this is the bar and dining area. You know, here you never know what's going to show up. So it's always worth having a camera and your binoculars with you because you just don't know what's going to show up. And it's amazing how many times people will leave their camera in their room and something magical happens, or they've left their binoculars somewhere and they desperately want them at the most inopportune moment, you know. So always, you know, bring your stuff with you. We've got the run of the place. So make the most of it. It's super comfortable. We have, well, like any sort of high-end lodge, there's a swimming pool, comfortable facilities, a bar, obviously, we've already spoken about. There's a spa as well. You know, whatever it is you want from this trip, hopefully we can deliver it. It's going to be a pretty special time, and we've got a great team of people, and that is really what makes these events so special. Em and I have done a couple of these trips already, and it is just great. You know, a festival is such a great sort of, I guess, coming together of like-minded people. It's that togetherness that makes it so fantastic. And you can learn new skills too. So what's not to like? So just to overview, sort of give an overview of the trip, we offer rainforest walks, night walks, which honestly you cannot miss out on. It's the whole reason for me to go to a rainforest is night walks. I'd happily sleep all day as long as I could go out on a night walk and spend all night out. It really is exceptional. The whale and dolphin watching, obviously. There'll be photography stuff with myself and Emma, from birds and mammals to reptiles to, I know for a fact, Emma will find all sorts of invertebrates. But you know, we can help with anything along those lines. There's also the chance to get in the water and enjoy some snorkeling as well. We will all be trying to provide some talks and presentations alongside workshops. So we will have scheduled dedicated workshops. If you want to just relax, you can do nothing. It's great. It's the perfect combination. And then also there'll be obviously the local expert guides, which then also includes Becky, the sloth scientist and conservationist extraordinaire. So there really is just an amazing amount on offer. The trip is £9,745, including flights, or if you wanted to organise your own flights, we have a land only price as well for 8,945. So there really is an incredible amount on offer. And just to top it off, we have some extensions available as well. So we have some pre-tour extensions for the festival. We've got one that goes to Tortuguero with Helen. So if you want more enthusiasm, there's a limited space actually on that one, but it's a 4-night trip to Tortuguero, which will be unbelievable. Such an amazing part of Costa Rica. You've got the Cano Negro wetlands as well, which Chris is leading. So another 4-nighter. Then you've got an extension on the Ossa Peninsula with M. So if you want to keep going and just love every moment of the Ossa Peninsula, you can have some more time to really indulge and go for that. Unfortunately, the Mike Dilger extension to Cervegre Valley has actually filled up already. But it just gives you an idea of the extras on offer. And also, to be honest, we could also tailor something if you really needed us to. So you're always welcome to get in touch and let us know. But it is going to be a trip of a lifetime filled with incredible wildlife, wonderful people, and of course, the biggest part of that is yourselves. So if you have any questions at all about the Festival of Wildlife, but about Costa Rica in general, Em and I will now do our best to answer them. I'm not saying we'll be able to answer everything, but we can do our best. We've both been to Costa Rica. We've explored some different areas. So hopefully between us, we can answer your questions.
Perfect. Lovely. Thanks, Brett. Now, before I forget, I'm going to launch a poll.
Well
which,
remembered.
yeah, thanks, um, which will basically just pop up on your screen. And if you would like any more information about, obviously the festival, which we've of course focused on, but the two group trips that I talked through briefly as well, just to give you a bit of an idea. But like Brett said, I mean, obviously with the festival itself, and with that Savegro one being full, we can Costa Rica out of all the destinations that we offer, Costa Rica is really one of the ones where the tailor-made extensions or full tailor-made trips are really quite simple to do. Whether some people self-drive, I'd probably prefer to get a driver if I'm honest, just because I think I just quite like to be driven on a trip. Um, but you can choose to self-drive, or you can have a driver that takes you between each lodge, and then you can do the excursions with the guides from those lodges. Or if you prefer, you can, have a small group, or if you're a couple, have a private guide that just goes with you throughout. So there's lots of different options, but it is a well set up country that knows what they're doing with this kind of thing. So it's easy to do. So let's get on to some questions. First one, only because I've got them in front of me and I'm going to forget otherwise. Someone was asking about when it's really wet, how do you look after your camera equipment? And sorry for those non-photographers, I'll start here, then we can move on to the general stuff. These desiccant sachet things that you get in packages, keep them, ask your friends to hold on to them, and line your camera bag with them. It is so useful to just have them in there. Keep your stuff in your camera bag overnight, have those in there, and try and keep things away from the air conditioning would be my advice. Brett, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, basically, you just don't want like cameras themselves in humid environments are fine, and the same even actually with binoculars, um, until you start going hot and humid, dry and cold, i.e., air conditioning. What you want to try and do is keep a consistency. So actually, in lots of places, I leave my camera bag outside and just zip it up. And it just stops everything getting really humid. Obviously, you need to charge your batteries and stuff like that. But the worst thing is to take it into a air conditioned room and then take everything out of your camera bag and let it get really cold and dry and then go out into a hot, humid rainforest because it just goes and everything steams up. So yeah, just try and keep it consistent. That's the key.
Yeah. A couple of people asking how many days the festival is. We didn't cover that, did we?
Oh no, it's 11 days.
In
So yeah,
total with
in
the
total with flights. Yeah. So if
flights.
you're on the ground, it's 10 days.
Yeah. So it's a really good way to just immerse yourself in the one thing, and that's kind of why we've done the extensions either side to give you a bit of a taste and experience of
Yeah.
other places in Costa Rica. But like we say, if there's other things that you want to add on, we can always look at doing that as well. So just get in touch with whoever that you've booked with, and we can talk that through. But yeah, kind of 10 days, I think 8 in Corcovado.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
We've only got the one night in San Jose. So
yeah. Do you need leech socks? You do not, I
no,
don't
I've
think.
never had, I don't know
No,
anyone that's ever had problems. I think there are
no,
leeches, but I've never heard of anybody.
no,
Yeah. I don't
no,
think it's a
me
problem. I mean,
neither.
I've walked through
No,
the
I don't.
rainforest in shorts. So
Yeah, yeah, I know definitely somewhere like Borneo, you really
yeah.
need
Yeah.
it.
Very
But
different.
here,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very different kind of rainforest, and no, I
Yeah.
don't think you do.
I don't think you do either.
Right. Is it a malaria zone? Oh, the key question. You need to look at the FCO for that, just to double check. But no, generally it's considered low risk. But it's always one of these things that,
You can't rule
always
it out, but
exactly. And depending if you're high risk, it's always worth speaking to a travel clinic, whatever, but it's not a high risk area. Are there chances of seeing turtles in the festival location?
it's
I would
not
say, yeah.
prime time, I don't
I
think.
mean, yeah, I would say
There's a
yes,
chance
it's
of seeing them.
feasible. Yeah, and
Yeah.
especially near Canyon Island, if we do the
Yeah.
the boat trips around Canyon Island, that is definitely a spot where, if you're doing the snorkeling there, there's definitely a chance.
Yeah.
If turtles are your thing, Tortuguero is the place to go. So either, tag on that extension, or yeah, or go there, as a tailor-made option afterwards. But that's
Yeah.
really the best time up there. So it's possible. You never know. Costa Rica is the gift that keeps giving. Are there any extensions to the Wildlife Wonders trip? Not set ones, but again, ones that we can definitely create for you, depending on what you want to see. And, often people will, there'll be something that's missing from a trip that you think, actually, I'd just like an extra 3 or 4 days there, or get there a couple of days early and, stay at Bougainvillea and just play in the gardens. Um, so yeah, there's various things you can do, but not set ones. It tends to be only really the festivals that will do set extensions for. Are there any ticks? I don't think I've never come across one there. I can't say no.
Again, I'm guessing there probably are, but
Yeah.
I walk through the forest with shorts. Um, got mosquito bites, but
Yeah, I
um,
mean, there's always going to be mozzies. It's a
but
rainforest. But
I
no,
never saw a tick as far as I'm aware. So I don't think
not
it's a
anywhere
major
that I've
problem.
been noticeably concerned about it,
It's not
Barry.
like walking in a game reserve in South
Yeah,
Africa, for example.
yeah, that.
Very different.
Perfect. Okay. I think that's probably it. Um, unless anybody has any last what are the temperatures like in July? Oh, it's a rainforest.
Yeah, I'm about to
I
say it's
mean,
pretty consistent all year. It'll be
yeah,
30, something like that. But if it rains, the temperature will drop. If it's
yeah.
dry, it'll probably be a bit higher.
And if it
It's
rains,
pretty
it tends
consistent.
to be, yeah, it tends to be kind of warm during the day. I mean, it'll be, I think there generally it's kind of
It doesn't
mid to
get
late
cold.
20s. No,
Yeah.
it's not going to be freezing overnight. You'll probably just need a little layer for, over a t-shirt or something in the evening.
Waterproofs, yes.
Waterproof's always.
Because you're in rainforest,
Yeah,
it can rain anytime.
yeah,
But yeah, it's never cold, but obviously if you're out in the rain in the forest, you can
yeah.
get cool. So it's definitely worth having a layer to put on under a waterproof.
And it is humid, so you just need to
Yeah.
be prepared for that as well. So lots of kind of these little silica gel packs, microfiber cloths, that kind of thing. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what lenses and other camera gear would you recommend? Oh, it's the magic question, Julie.
Everything.
I would say so. When I went last time, I think I had my 300 2.8 and a 70 to 200. And obviously, you're packing the macro, obviously. Um, I would say probably I struggled a bit with the 300. It wasn't quite far enough. So I'd
Yeah.
say go for the widest aperture you can because it can be dark. And obviously, anything in a tree canopy is tricky. I would say maybe a 400-ish 2.8 if you're lucky enough to have one, or you know, something similar, 100 to 500.
Yeah.
But
You
you
just need
will,
something you can hand hold as well,
yeah,
because if it's something up in the canopy, by the
yeah,
time you get a tripod set up
yeah,
and get it like it's going to be gone. Um, so yeah, anything for that, you want something you can easily hold, but has a good length, focal length. And then, like Em said, definitely take a macro. Um, I mean, I'll be taking my macro kit, so I'll be taking everything. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, if you have
And
something with f2.8, definitely like
yeah,
it's amazing. But
yeah,
like Em says, with the 300 f2.8, although the light gathering's great, it's kind of not long enough, really.
yeah. But even, if you have an extender, that would definitely help
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But
100
the
to
one,
500 or something is
yeah.
great lens.
Yeah, is really good, but you just might struggle because it probably will be quite dark in some
Yeah.
of the forest, depending.
We can
Um,
help you.
yeah, exactly. And then the other thing, I know people quite a lot struggle with carrying a lens, and especially if you're walking around the rainforest. So any photographers, I really recommend something like a black rapid strap or something like that you can strap it to your body, some kind of strap that you have it. And
And a waterproof
then
cover.
a waterproof cover and a monopod probably because I know a lot of people struggle to
Yeah.
hold them up. So, often I would say don't bother bringing tripods and monopods, but for something like this, I think a monopod would definitely be worth it if you don't want to lift the lens and, you're taking monkeys up in the canopy or, a quetzal that's hiding behind a leaf and you're
Yeah.
waiting, then, there's only so much you can do with your arms. And then probably by the time you put your arm down, it'll come out or, you
Yeah,
don't want to
exactly.
miss it. So yeah, if you have a monopod, probably worth bringing.
Yeah. Peter's asked about lengths.
Yeah.
Focal lengths, are they for a full frame? Yes, we're talking
Yeah.
full frame. So if you've got a crop sensor, obviously it helps.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. I think that's pretty much everything. Mark, I know you've sent a question. I'm probably going to come back to you. We'll come back to you offline about that one because that's quite specific, and I'm going to need to look into it. Um, Oh, Chris, is there a weight limit on the internal flight? There is. It is quite limited, but I do believe we might have got a slightly extra. So, I can if you email me about that potentially, and well, we can come back to you about that tomorrow. But there's more notes in the travel plan, and you can buy additional weight for the plane if you need it. But there's always ways around it. We all know the tricks. I know you're thinking about camera kit. Photographers are the worst. We're the worst when we travel. It's always about how we can get the kit. But we'll find ways to do it. And yes, they can be stingy, but the good thing about Costa Rica is you don't need a lot of clothes. It's very casual. You'll just need light things. So we can just all bring camera equipment and we'll be fine. We'll all just wear the same thing for 10 days, but we'll be
Yeah, it's
fine.
fine. Yeah, we'll all be the same. It doesn't matter.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to let you people go off and enjoy
We've
your
got one
lovely
last
evening. Hello,
slide.
Brett. Oh,
One
we've got
last
one last.
slide.
Oh my gosh, he's so good. I'm so glad he's here. I'll put it onto that. Well done.
There we go.
Right, I'll close these because I can't see anything. Good. So this is our upcoming events. Well done, Brett. So there is an exclusive discount for those of you who have hung around with us this evening. Thank you very much. So it's CRI Zoom 26 for £150 off, and that's valid until the 19th of Feb, which is I think in a couple of weeks. And then we've got a few more talks coming up. So next week on Thursday, we've got Discover Sri Lanka. And then we've got Baja in the Dominican Republic, which I believe is the enthusiastic HB, and she will have just got back from it.
Hmm.
Um, and then Zambia, which is obviously close to our hearts, and then going to Kruger in early March. So lots to look forward to, lots of different things to think about. I know lots of you guys, we're both off traveling in the next week. I know quite a lot of you guys are as well. So whoever is, have a wonderful time. If you're not, lovely talks to come and watch. But as ever, all of these are recorded and are available on YouTube. So you can always pop onto there and check them out anytime if you can't make them. But that's it from us. So thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, we'll see anybody who is interested or is already booked in Costa Rica next year. If we can organise a separate trip, then do let us know. But as you can tell, Brett and I both really love it there. So we'd always be happy to talk more about it. So thank you so much for joining us and have a lovely evening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.